12 o'clock. Thank you for joining us at this time. You're watching news analysis live on Politics and Business TV. The top stories. Hunger protest loses steam as Department of State Services grills 7 foreigners. Oral Festival. The Federal University Oye Ekiti issues safety directive for female students, staff. And bad governance in Nigeria. Abuja youth declare week of peace. Details coming up shortly. Thank you for joining us. I am Idris Amina. Now the news. The hunger protests which rocked the country, especially the northern part from last Thursday, appears to have lost steam following the police crackdown on the organizers and protesters, many of whom had been detained. Some of the End Bad Governance protest leaders have also gone underground and switched off their phones as the Department of State Services took custody of 7 Polish nationals arrested for waving Russian flags during the demonstration in Kano on Tuesday. DSS spokesman Peter Afunanya confirmed the arrest on Wednesday while explaining that the action was part of routine security enforcement rather than a targeted effort against Polish nationals. The protests, which gained momentum in major cities such as Kano, Gombe, Yobe, Borno, Niger, Kebbi, Abuja, and other northern towns, were marked by escalating violence. In some instances, security officials' actions were the catalyst for the violence, while in other cases it was driven by overzealous protesters or counter-protesters. A few days ago, media reports and footage showed some End Bad Governance protesters carrying Russian flags. The Federal University Oyo Ekiti has issued an urgent directive advising all female staff and students on the Ikole campus to remain indoors from 7th to 9th August 2024 due to the Oral Festival scheduled to be held in the Ikole Ekiti community. According to a statement from the Registrar's Office dated August 6th, the measure is intended to ensure the safety of the university's female members during the traditional event. In a memo signed by Senior Assistant Registrar Ibukun Oluwa O. Alamu, the university stressed the need for this precaution due to the Oral Festival. The notice was titled Notice to All Female Staff and Students on Ikole Campus. The Oral Festival, typically characterized of marks, men and restrictions on movements for women, is an indigenous cultural practice observed in various Yoruba communities. The notice aims to ensure the safety and well-being of all female members of the university community during this period. The university urges all affected individuals to comply with this directive and remain indoors for the duration of the festival. The Abuja Resident Youth Association has declared a week of peace beginning on 11th August to promote harmonious relationships among youth in the Federal Capital Territory. Its president, Mr. Akoshile Mukhtar, disclosed this at the news conference in Abuja on Wednesday, distancing the association from the ongoing nationwide protest against hunger, hardship, and poor governance. Mukhtar stated that the initiative is part of the association's ongoing effort to promote peace and unity in the FCT. He explained that the association would organize various activities during the week, including a peace walk, peace talk, prayer sessions, and other events aimed at fostering harmony and understanding among the youth. He commends FCT Minister Mr. Nyesom Wike for his proactive approach in addressing the grievances of the youth and initiating developmental strides that have transformed Abuja into a capital city all Nigerians can be proud of. Mukhtar added that since assuming office, Wike had demonstrated a clear commitment to fostering a more inclusive and progressive Abuja, explaining that the minister's initiatives have not only addressed immediate concerns, but have also laid the foundation for sustainable development. You are watching news analysis live on Politics and Business Television. Still to come, Olympics Governor Peter Mba salutes valiant the Tigress. Details of this and more after the break. The governor of Enugu State, Peter Mba, has hailed the Nigerian women's national basketball team, the Tigress, for their great outing at the Paris Olympics, saying they put up a courageous performance against the most successful female national basketball team, the USA. Mba also restated his administration's determination to position Enugu State sports sector as an incubation hub for future Olympic champions. The governor, who took to his social media handles to react to the Tigress loss, said with the final score of 88 points garnered by the US as against 74 points by Nigeria, the Tigress bowed out in grand style and won the hearts of the world and fans of basketball. He described the Tigress' disqualification for the quarterfinals before they were stopped by the US as a height never attained by any African basketball team, male or female, at the Olympics. The leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) has urged the federal government to implement policies that would alleviate the suffering of Nigerians. President of NLC, Joe Ajero, said this in a communique jointly signed by Mr. Emmanuel, NLC General Secretary, at the end of an emergency meeting on Wednesday in Abuja. The communique was issued at the end of the emergency meeting of the National Executive Council to assess the welfare of Nigerian workers and the general populace in light of the hardship. He urged the federal government to engage in meaningful dialogue with the representatives of the protesters, civil society organizations, and other stakeholders. Ajero called on the government to implement immediate relief measures to alleviate the suffering of workers and general populace. He said these include the food aid, subsidies on essential commodities, and other social safety nets. Still, you are watching news analysis live on Politics and Business Television. Join us after the break as we discuss our today's topic, raising Russian flag during protests. What are the security implications for Nigeria? See you shortly. Welcome back. In line with the ongoing hunger protest, about 40 people have been arrested in northern Nigeria for waving Russia's national flag during protest against the high cost of living and what they feel is bad governance. Amid this crackdown, Army Chief Christopher Musa warned that it is a treasonable offense to fly the flags of foreign countries. Nigeria has seen 6 days of nationwide protests in which at least 7 people have died and more than 700 have been arrested. Demonstrators have been chanting slogans such as "We are hungry," while a minority have been pictured waving Russia's flag and voicing support for Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to local media, some of these protesters have called on Moscow to rescue them. The subsequent arrests are seen as an attempt to stifle any fledgling support for Russia in Nigeria, a leading oil producer and a key ally of Western powers. Several countries in the wider region of West Africa, including Nigeria's neighbors, Niger, have pivoted away from the West and towards Russia after recent military coups. Civilian governments backed by the likes of France and the US had rapidly lost popularity. Critics accused them of failing to tackle insecurity, corruption, and economic problems. The Army Chief Christopher Musa said, "We are warning in clear terms that we will not accept any individual flying any foreign flag in Nigeria." that is a treasonable offense and it will be viewed and treated as such. The Russian embassy in Nigeria has distanced itself from the demonstration, saying that the flags were the personal choices of protesters. As always, we emphasize that Russia does not interfere in the domestic affairs of foreign states, including Nigeria. It added, on Monday, the northwestern states of Kaduna and Zamfara saw a massive turnout of demonstrators. Kaduna police spokesman Mansur Hassan said 39 people had been arrested, including a tailor who was sewing the foreign flags for the group. Close to 40 Russian flags were confiscated, as well as a Chinese one, he added. Meanwhile, the Department of State Services, DSS, yesterday revealed that it is investigating 7 Polish nationals who were arrested in Kano over their alleged involvement in the widespread waving of the Russian flag during the protest. Speaking during a meeting in Abuja on Wednesday with members of the diplomatic corps, the DSS spokesman Peter Afunaya said the Polish nationals were arrested in connection with the waving of Russian flags during the protests. Joining us after the break is Dr. Yahuza Ahmed Getso, a security expert who will be taking us through the security implications of raising foreign flags during protests in Nigeria. Stay tuned. Online with me, I have Dr. Yahuza Ahmed Getso, a security expert who will be discussing the implication of raising a foreign flag in Nigeria during protests. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Yahuza Ahmed.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, viewers.
So my first question for you today is, what is the implication, or what are the security implications of raising Russian flag in Nigeria during protests?
Well, there are 7 security implications, and there may be even more than that. One of the implications is that we are compromising the Nigeria's territorial integrity. That is one. Secondly, it is also signifies, it has implication on compromising the sovereignty of Nigeria as a state. And thirdly, it's exposing the intelligence of the country in terms of unity, peace, and security. And number 4, it has implication over the division in the country, making it difficult for 100% allegiance to the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And number 5, it is raising a kind of concern and question of either Nigerians, some are having a dual citizenship or a single citizenship. Because those who raise the flags, or Russian flag, or whichever flag they raise, they don't know I don't know in judicial perspective, it's not an excuse. If you commit an offense and you say, I don't know, nobody will listen to you in the court. Even though I'm not a legal person, I will appreciate the legal people, the legal lawyers to respond to this section of the question and of the concern and of the implication I have observed. And number 6, it's also kind of give the foreign relation in terms of the respect by the Russian to Nigeria, in terms of the respect by Nigeria to the Russian, because that can easily create a kind of internal dispute. And it's one of the key reasons why a Russian embassy in Abuja quickly responded and distance itself from those who raise rising the flags in Kano and other locations. So these are the major implications. It has a serious diplomatic breach. Of course, I have heard from the Chief of Defense Staff and some others who made observations that is a treasonable offense, which I cannot respond to that because I'm not a legal person and I don't know really the act related to that very much. So I don't want to go into what I don't know. But these are the 6 security implications. And it is also, finally, in general, and in summary, we can say that we are breeding, kind of discouraging the younger ones on nationalism. Because nationalism is what's supposed to be built from the top to the bottom. So those who are growing will be able to understand the importance of the national flag, will be able to understand. But when you are having Russian or any other country's flag that is being raised, especially during such a protest, whereby it's kind of creating a rebel team. So as far as I'm concerned, they're supposed to be dealt with decisively and as at when due. And if we cannot do that, it means we are cheating ourselves, we are deceiving ourselves, and we are not taking ourselves anywhere.
So in my opinion, raising the Russian flag, is it not Nigerians demanding for help, like asking for help from Russia? And you made mention of...
If they could do that, there is a process.
Okay.
There is a process and procedure. One, they must obtain dual citizenship of Russia and still remain in Nigeria. A Nigerian can have Russian citizenship and stay in Russia. So he has the right or privilege to raise up the Nigerian flag in Russia when he is demonstrating against, even in UK or wherever you see Nigerians demonstrating. They never raise the Russian flag or UK flag or US flag, but rather they raise their own flag because they own the nationality of Nigeria. So those who rose the flag, they are Nigerian nationals, and they don't have dual citizenship. They don't have Russian citizenship.
Okay, among the implications you mentioned, do you think Nigeria body all of them, or we are just deceiving ourselves? Where you mentioned sovereignty, where you mentioned the protesters exposing the peace and the integrity of the country. Do we really have peace in Nigeria, and is there integrity in this country, considering the fact that our governments are not even listening to the masses?
Well, I cannot make such a declaration, because the declaration in the Constitution is still, that Constitution still remains, and that is the only Constitution we have, and that is what validates me and you to be Nigerian. And that's what validates you and me to have the national ID card, the national national identity management number, which is a social security to you and to me. And that's what will enable you to also have access to Nigerian passports, and that to international passport that you can present everywhere. So even if it hasn't been declared, so the declaration have not to be made that the Constitution, there is change in the Constitution, so I have the right to choose a citizenship of another country. So because even if I need a citizenship of Niger or Cameroon or any of the West African countries, talk less of Russia, I must present where I came from. And where I came from is Nigeria. And what identify me in Nigeria is a national identity management number and the national international passport, as well as the citizenship from my local government, my village, signed by the ward head, the village head, the district head, the local government chairman or caretaker or whosoever, also administrator.
Okay.
So I must present that to Russia if I need a citizenship, a second country citizenship. I must present it to America. I must present it even to Niger Republic. I must present it even to Cameroon. I want to cite an example to you. Recently, I just come back from some kind of monitoring and comparative research in respect to issues of security among the border of the state of West Africa region. I was in Mali, I was in Senegal, I was in Burkina Faso, I was in Cameroon, Chad, and others. But all these countries that I have been to, I had to present Nigeria's passport. And also I have to get the authority from Nigerian government before I was able to be given a privilege of the number of days I spent in each of these countries. And all these are black countries. All these are African countries.
So
all
that's
these are
aside, sir.
Countries.
That's aside. What could be the major reason behind the flag display of Russia during the protest? Like of all the nations,
Well,
of all the countries
there are
in the
5
world,
reasons.
why
One
Russia?
of the reasons is kind of probably, because I told you in a legal line, in a legal suit it cannot be accepted. I don't know. Probably I don't know attitude, which cannot be accepted by any judge. That is one. Secondly, there may be a bilateral breach. Probably some people at the foreign scene are mobilizing those guys to do that. And that way, you're supposed to present Nigeria's flag. You don't even need to raise the flag. It's not even necessary. There are many ways you can move around chanting. So, but that is a treasonable offense, like mentioned by the military, the chief of defense staff and other security chiefs. And I hope Nigerian government will do everything to deal with these guys, so that could serve as a deterrence for others to avoid doing so in the future.
So still on the Russia raising Russia flag, would you look towards the line of saying that the protest was sponsored by foreigners?
Well, even if it is sponsored by foreigners, I don't have evidence. And I cannot discuss anything further on this, because the Russian government have formally distanced itself from them. So, and I don't have any evidence to showcase. And the guys, those who committed that, have not been charged before the court of law. It's only the court of law that have the right to affirm that yes, there is a foreign intervention or there is none. Because for me, I cannot face any of them and ask them whether you are being sponsored by a foreign missions or a foreign diplomacy or whatever. I cannot do that. And whosoever does that will be doing it in his own kind of I cannot justify it actually.
Okay, so the protesters that have been arrested, do you think the arrest was legitimate, and can it give a substantive information?
Yes, of course. If those who found guilty have been arrested, like I told you, they compromise Nigeria's integrity and sovereignty. Based on that, I know, and it has a serious security implication. And it's very, very dangerous for Nigeria as a nation, and it's very, very dangerous for peace and unity. And there are clauses in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that dealt with that and discussed the provision of law on those who committed such offenses. And that could be explained by the court of law or the legal literate, which I am not.
So prior to the protest, do you think that the protesters were aware of the implication of raising a foreign flag, and they still went ahead to raise the flag? Because maybe they might be daring the government.
I told you that
something.
they claim, I don't know, ignorance. And ignorance is not acceptable in any law. You cannot go to before the court of, before the judge, before any court, and you kill somebody or you wounded somebody, and if you are asked to say that you don't know that there is law against that, that can never be accepted and can never be tolerated. And I believe and I hope Nigerian government will do everything possible to deal with them decisively and accordingly.
Okay, so finally, amidst all this violence, all these hoodlums taking over the protest, would you say the protest was truly hunger-driven, or was there another mission to it?
Well, from what we saw, from what we have seen so far, there are 5 things. 1, there is protest for hunger. 2, there is issues of widening gap between the leaders and the leads. And 3, there is also other missions, negative mission, those who are really probably opposition. I may call them either opposition or whatever. And then 4, there may be a foreign intervention, which I cannot justify. But I can really vividly, very clearly justify that there are internal influx, there are internal influence within the country in the domestic cycle. Why? Because in Kano, peacefully, those who were demonstrating, who were protesting, they went to the government house. The governor pronounced 2-3 days before the date that he will be waiting for them to present their complaint, and he will present it to the President of the Republic of Nigeria. And that was done. They made their own submission to the governor, Engineer Abba Kabir Yusuf. He accepted it, and he addressed them, and he ensured them that he will deliver it to the president, and those other issues that had to do with him, he will sit down and review them with his government and will do the needful. And then they dispersed and they left and said goodbye. So it was after they left, then other hoodlums took over the process, and it became something else.
So now we are trying to say that the destroying of some government properties in Kano is by sponsored group of people.
It is by 3 groups: sponsored, hoodlums, and thugs.
Okay, so you made mention of the wide gap between the leaders and the lead.
Yes.
This gap, do you think it's been reduced, and what have been done to?
Well, it cannot be easily filled in. It's something that has been opening for more than 40 years. So we cannot close it in one day. Tinubu administration alone cannot close it. It has to take a process. It is started through a process, and it has to take a process before it is filled on. So it cannot be filled off in one day. It has to take the process. It has taken a long process for it to be to have the opening. So at the same time it will also take a process before it gets closed.
All right, thank you, Dr. Yahuza, for joining us on the program for today.
Thank you for having me.
So that has been Dr. Yahuza Ahmed Getso, a security expert, and that will be the size of our package for today. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.